For most of my early years, I thought I was just dumb compared to everyone else because I struggled to read. My parents, teachers, friends, everyone thought I just had a lower IQ or needed extra tutoring lessons to catch up. But none of that ever helped me because of the longest time, I didn't know I was suffering from dyslexia. It all began in kindergarten when the school told my parents that I would have to repeat the grade for a second year. I didn't understand why at the time, and I begged my parents and teacher to allow me to be with my friends, but they insisted it was what I needed. This basically made me the dumb kid in class, and even at that age, I knew classmates and parents saw me that way. Dumb. It was hard not to believe them, but I learned to ignore their judgments and just be me. It wasn't until first grade where I began making friends, but I still felt weird being the oldest and dumbest kid. To help me, the school decided to give me my own tutor. He would mainly focus on spelling and reading since that was what I was struggling in, and would hold a card up with the letter A, for example, and say, "What sound does this make?" I would learn things like consonants and vowel teams, and a bunch of other stuff. This continued throughout my entire elementary school years, but none of it really helped. Most people think I have problems with my eyesight when it comes to dyslexia. That is not true. I found out it's actually a language decoding problem. The part of my brain that decodes what I read is just sending me mixed or reversed information, which makes it harder for me to understand and interpret. I could read lawn mower, but my brain thinks it should sound as mon lower. This drives me crazy at times because I would always question why I couldn't get it right like every other student around me. I can't even copy what I read and write it down in order. Or if I would like to copy the address of something, it would be a mix of alphabets and letters all out of order. I would work so much harder than all my other classmates, and yet they would all do better. I thought it was stupid remembering how my teacher would announce reading time and all the other kids would cheer in excitement while I felt anxious and prayed I wasn't called on. It got to the point where I would count each person, guess which part I would have to read, and then practice it over and over until it was my turn. And after all that anxiety, I'd still fail, and the teacher would end up reading the words and making me repeat them to make it seem like I read it. Still, no one really knew what was wrong with me, and just assumed I was slow. The worst part was the other kids. It wasn't their fault that they didn't understand what dyslexia was, but it didn't stop it from being hard. Some kids only knew dyslexia from the Percy Jackson movies, thinking that, in my head, the words would fly off the page, fully animated, but this wasn't true in real life. They also thought I could read Greek. Also, not true. And then there were the kids that only knew about dyslexia from the Bella Thorne commercials on Disney Channel. They'd assumed dyslexia for each person was all the same, and that all dyslexia was just mixing up a couple of letters. Then, there were the kids who didn't think dyslexia was a real thing and thought I was lying to get extra time on tests or more chances if I got something wrong. So, in 4th grade, my school got me a school computer that I'd had to lug around to classes and back home every day. All I could do on the computer was listen to audiobooks, type, make the computer read to me, and do extra hours of learning programs for homework. Other kids thought I was just playing games on the computer, which just drove the faking it to get special treatment theory even more. They all called me the teacher's pet or dumb because I needed a big computer to help me do the same coursework they had. Unlike playing an instrument or a sport where it requires practice because it's a physical skill and not everyone can do that. Reading and writing is something everyone can do, even kids who are younger than me, and they would do it so easily while I struggled so hard staring at one word for minutes. My mom finally had enough and enrolled me in a private school for dyslexic children. It wasn't cheap, and she had to work really hard to get me into that school. Even though school was a scary subject for me, I still had a lot of friends at my old school and wanted to stay with them. But eventually, I grew to enjoy my new school because of the help I was receiving. The best part, everyone at school had different learning disabilities that really made me feel like I wasn't alone. Here, we were all different, yet the same, and it felt empowering knowing that everyone is perfect. I went to that school for 6 years, from 5th grade to 9th grade, and I've graduated from there since. I am now at the top of my English class and was told I was a good writer. Even though I misspelled a lot of words, it doesn't take anything away from my creativity or what I can imagine. In fact, I see my dyslexia as a gift, being able to think in pictures more than the average person, while training my mind to see patterns in nearly everything I experience, making me think outside the box more easily. I will have dyslexia for the rest of my life, and it'll always stick with me. But I've learned that it does not define who I am or what I'm capable of. The same goes for anyone out there struggling like me with dyslexia. Have hope that there are new and modern learning accommodations and modifications in learning for dyslexic people like us, so that we can lead a life that is more fulfilling. On that note, we are not dumb or slow. We are just wired in a special way.